I retired at 63, terrified I'd run out of money. I'm Ron, and I have to tell you, the day I walked out of my job for the last time, my hands were shaking. Not from excitement, from pure, uncut fear. For the first 6 months, I woke up every morning convinced I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. I'd lie there in the dark, my heart pounding, running the numbers in my head for the 1,000th time. I'd think about inflation, a stock market crash, some unforeseen medical bill that would wipe us out. Everyone tells you to have a plan, a bulletproof plan. And I had one. I had spreadsheets. I had projections. But what nobody tells you is that a spreadsheet can't quiet the voice in your head at 3 a.m. that says, what if you're wrong? What if you've just condemned yourself and your wife to a miserable old age? That fear is a physical thing. It sits on your chest. It makes it hard to enjoy the very freedom you worked your whole life to achieve. I felt like I had stepped off a cliff and was just waiting to hit the ground. And here's the thing. That fear is exactly where the system wants you to be. It's a cage, and the bars are made of what-ifs. We're taught to chase this idea of perfect certainty, a finish line where every possible risk has been eliminated. But I'm here to tell you, after 12 years on the other side, that finish line is a mirage. It's designed to keep moving further away, to keep you on the treadmill for one more year, then one more after that, until there's nothing left of you to enjoy the prize. So today, I want to share the 4 truths I've learned since I took that leap of faith. And let me be clear, these aren't financial tips from some expert. I'm no expert. This is just what I learned, talking from my own experience. These are truths about fear, about freedom, and about what the word enough really, truly means. I'm going to walk you through the 4 realizations that took me from a state of constant panic to a sense of peace I never knew was possible, and show you why the most important numbers in your life will never appear on a spreadsheet. The first truth, the one that took me the longest to learn, is that the perfect number doesn't exist. It's a ghost. It's a story they tell you to keep you on the treadmill. We're all chasing this magic number, this amount of money in the bank that's supposed to act like a shield against every possible bad thing that could ever happen. We think if we just get to that number, a switch will flip in our heads and all the fear will just disappear. But let me tell you, from my own experience, that finish line is designed to move. You get close, and then you hear a news report about inflation, or the stock market has a bad week, or you read an article that says you'll live to be 100, and suddenly your calculations are all wrong. The system isn't designed for you to feel safe. It's designed for you to feel just a little bit short, just one more year away from true security. They call it financial prudence, but for most of us, it's just analysis paralysis. It's the art of being so afraid of making the wrong move that you make no move at all, and you just stay put. I remember sitting at our little kitchen table with my wife, Sarah. It must have been 2 in the morning. I had the spreadsheet spread out, the calculator next to my coffee cup. And you know what? The numbers worked. On paper, we were fine. We had enough. I felt a moment of relief, the first one in months. Then, just to have some noise in the house, I turned on the television. The news anchor was talking about a 1% rise in the projected inflation rate. 1%. And I watched my entire plan, my whole sense of security, crumble into dust right there on the kitchen table. It felt like a house of cards in a breeze. I spent the next 2 weeks glued to that chair, tweaking the numbers, running new scenarios, trying to build a fortress of math that could withstand that 1%. I was chasing a feeling of safety that just wouldn't come. That was my life for years, always just one good spreadsheet away from freedom, a freedom that never arrived because there was always a new storm on the horizon. And that's when I finally understood. Waiting for that perfect number is like standing on the shore, waiting for the ocean to be perfectly still before you set sail. You'll spend your entire life on that dock. You'll watch the tides go in and out, you'll see other ships come and go, and your own boat will just sit there rotting in the harbor. The sea is never going to be perfectly calm. That's not its nature. The point isn't to wait for a calm sea. The point is to trust that you can learn how to navigate the waves. You learn to read the weather. You learn to handle the sails. And here's the truth of it. Certainty is the most expensive thing you can try to buy. It will cost you your health, your peace, and all the good years you have left. Your life is not a math problem to be solved. It's a story to be lived. And you can't live it if you're forever stuck on the shore, just running the numbers. The second truth I had to learn is that the real risk isn't leaving your job. The real risk is staying. We spend all our time worrying about the financial risk of retiring, of running out of money 15 or 20 years down the road. It's a what if. It's a possibility. But we completely ignore the guaranteed physical and mental cost of staying in a place that's draining the life out of us. That's not a risk. That's a certainty. For me, in that last year of work, it was a tightness in my chest that started every morning on the drive in. It was like a little fist clenching around my heart. My doctor said it was just stress, gave me a pill for my blood pressure, another one to help me sleep at night. I'd sit in those long meetings under the fluorescent lights, looking out the window at a beautiful sunny day, and I'd feel like I was in a prison. I was paying for a supposedly secure future with my actual present-day health. I was trading my life force for a paycheck, and it was a bad trade. The question isn't, what if I run out of money? The real question is, what will be left of me to enjoy it if I stay? And here's the third truth, the one that really changed everything for me. Your life is more elastic than your budget. You find out you need a whole lot less money when you're no longer paying to escape your own life. Think about it. So many of our expenses are just financial band-aids for the stress of the job, the slightly nicer car for the miserable commute, the expensive takeout food because you're too exhausted to even think about cooking, the Amazon packages that show up at your door, giving you a little 2-minute hit of excitement in an otherwise gray week, the big vacations you feel you absolutely need just to decompress from the pressure of it all. You're not spending that money to live, you're spending it to survive. You're trying to buy little pockets of relief. When you remove the source of the stress, the need for all those expensive band-aids just melts away. Your life gets cheaper because it gets richer. You stop buying things to fill a void that your job created in the first place. Let me tell you about my lunch. In my old life, lunch was a $15 sandwich in a plastic container, eaten at my desk in a hurry while I answered emails. The bread was always a little soggy. The office air was stale. My phone would be buzzing next to my keyboard. That was lunch. Today for lunch, I walked out into my little backyard garden. I felt the sun on my arms. I picked 2 big red tomatoes, still warm from the vine. I could smell the earth on them. I brought them inside, chopped them up with an onion and some garlic, and made a simple tomato soup. It cost maybe $1 to make. I sat at my kitchen table with Sarah, and we just ate our soup and looked out the window. There was no phone buzzing, no emails to answer. There was just quiet. And you know what? It was the best lunch I've had in my entire life. It was just good. And that's when you understand the real shift. We weren't cutting expenses. That sounds like a sacrifice. We were shedding burdens. We sold our second car after a year because we realized it just sat in the driveway most of the time. That wasn't a sacrifice. It was a relief. One less thing to insure. One less thing to get inspected, one less thing to worry about. Freedom isn't expensive. It's the cage that costs you everything. Your budget before you retire is like a car stuck in traffic, engine running, burning gas just to stand still. You're constantly revving the engine, going nowhere, and it costs a fortune. When you finally get off that road, you get to turn the engine off. You realize you can walk to most of the places you want to go, and the journey itself feels better than the destination ever did. We've been taught to calculate the cost of everything, except the cost of our own unhappiness. And here's the fourth truth, the one that's hardest to see when you're still inside the machine. The person who is terrified to retire is not the same person you will become once you are free. You are far more resourceful than you know. The system, the corporate world, it has a way of making us forget that. It makes you a specialist in one tiny area and a helpless consumer in every other part of your life. The car breaks down, you call a guy. The sink leaks, you call a guy. You feel a little sad, there's a product for that. This isn't an accident. A person who feels dependent and incapable is a perfect employee and a fantastic customer. They don't want you to know how to solve your own problems. They want you to believe that every solution has a price tag. So we start to see uncertainty not as a part of life, but as a crisis that requires a purchase. What I learned is that retirement isn't the uncertainty. It's the masterclass in self-reliance. It's the space you need to remember how to be a complete human being again. Let me give you a real example. About a year into retirement, our water heater broke. Just stopped working one morning. The old Ron, the guy who is still wired for the corporate world, would have panicked. He would have immediately called the first plumber he could find and paid whatever emergency fee they asked just to make the problem go away. But the new Ron, he had something the old Ron never did: time. So you know what I did? I went on the internet. I typed in the model of our water heater and watched a few videos. And it turns out it was a simple little part called a thermocouple. It cost $12 at the hardware store. It took me 2 hours, a wrench, and a lot of patience, but I fixed it. I stood there in our basement, hot water running again, and I felt like a king for a whole week. And here's the thing. It wasn't about the $300 I saved. It was about the realization that I could handle things. I could figure it out. That feeling, that deep down confidence, is a kind of wealth that no 401k statement can ever give you. Now, if you're listening to this and thinking, well, that's good for you, but I'm not handy. I'm not that kind of person. I want you to hear me out. That feeling that you can't handle things, that's not a personal failing. It's a trained response. It's what happens after decades of being told to stay in your lane, to outsource every problem, to never venture outside your job description. You're like a houseplant that's only ever been watered on a strict schedule. You think you can't survive any other way. But once you're planted in real earth, in the soil of your own life, you discover you have roots that know how to find water on their own. You learn to live with the seasons, not the schedule. The fear of running out of money is really the fear of not being able to handle the unexpected. But when you start solving your own small problems, you build a kind of internal savings account of confidence. And that, I've found, is the only security that's truly real. So what does this life look like on the other side of all that fear? Well, it's a whole lot quieter, I can tell you that. Most mornings I wake up with the sun. There's no alarm clock screaming at me anymore. The first sound I hear is the birds outside our window. I get up, I make coffee, and the whole house smells like coffee, not like something burning because I'm rushing out the door. Sarah and I, we sit out on the back porch. We don't say much. We just sip our coffee and watch the day start. Sometimes a deer will walk across the edge of the yard. We just watch it go. There's nowhere I have to be. There's no clock on the wall that I'm racing against. The time just feels soft. It's not this hard, sharp thing that's always cutting into you, always telling you you're late. It's just there, like the air. And I finally have the space to just breathe it in. It took me a long time to get used to it. The quiet felt wrong at first. But now, I wouldn't trade it for anything. And you know, the most surprising thing is how little all of this costs. We were so obsessed with that big number in our savings account, the one we thought we needed to buy happiness. But the things that actually make me happy now, they're mostly free. That hour on the porch with my wife, that's free. The walk I take down to the creek in the afternoon, that's free. The feeling of the sun on my face when I'm working in my little garden, that's free. We used to save up all year for a 2-week vacation, just to feel a little bit of this peace. We needed to escape our lives. Now we've built a life we don't need to escape from. It's not about sacrifice. It's not about cutting back and feeling poor. It's about realizing that all the things we were spending money on were just cheap substitutes for the one thing we really wanted, which was our own time. We wanted to own our own days. And once you have that, you find you don't need much else. I haven't felt that tightness in my chest in 12 years. I sleep through the night now. I don't wake up at 3 in the morning with my heart pounding, worrying about a meeting or a deadline or some number on a spreadsheet. That constant, low-grade hum of anxiety that was the background music to my entire life. It's just gone. And its absence is the most valuable thing I own. It's a kind of wealth they can't teach you about in business school. It's the peace that comes from knowing your life is your own. Not your boss's, not the bank's, yours. If you're feeling that knot in your stomach right now, the one you get on Sunday nights, I'm just here to tell you from my own experience that it can go away. You weren't built to live like that. And life can be something other than a long emergency. It can just be life. And that's more than enough. For 40 years, I knew exactly who I was supposed to be. I was Ron, the supervisor. I had a title on a plastic nameplate. I had a designated parking spot. I had a place to be every morning and a set of problems to solve that were given to me by someone else. The system likes that. It gives you a prepackaged identity, a role to play, so you don't have to go through the messy business of figuring out who you are on your own. We think the fear of retirement is about the money. And it is, on the surface. But if you dig a little deeper, you find the real terror. It's the fear of being insignificant. It's the fear that if you're not producing something, if you're not on the clock, if your name isn't on a schedule somewhere, then you simply don't matter. We've been trained our whole lives to believe our value is tied to our utility, that our worth as a human being is something that can be measured on a performance review. That's the real cage, and it's a lot harder to see than the financial one. And here's the biggest truth I learned, the one that really changed me. The rat race isn't just about money. It never was. It's about identity. They hand you a job title and a business card, and slowly, without you even noticing, that becomes who you are. You stop being a person who has a job, and you become the job itself. You're not John, who likes to fish and tell bad jokes. You're John, the accountant. You're not Mary, who loves to paint and knows all the names of the birds. You're Mary, the project manager. And the real price you pay for that steady paycheck isn't just your time, it's yourself. You trade your curiosity, your hobbies, your quiet moments, all the unscheduled parts of you, for a spot on the organizational chart. And I'm here to tell you, leaving that life didn't make me useless. It did the opposite. It made me human again. It gave me back the person I was before someone paid me to be someone else. It's a strange thing, to spend the first half of your life learning how to be a worker, and the second half learning how to just be a person. You have to unlearn so much. You have to unlearn the constant sense of urgency. You have to unlearn the idea that every minute of your day has to be filled with something productive, something you can check off a list. You have to learn how to just sit still and not feel guilty about it. It's a different kind of work. It's quiet work. It's the work of remembering who you are when nobody's watching, when nobody's grading your performance. And I'll tell you something. It's the most important work I've ever done. It doesn't come with a paycheck, but what it gives you back is worth a whole lot more. It gives you back your own life. So we come back to where we started, that fear, the kind that wakes you up at 3 a.m, heart pounding in the dark. I told you my hands were shaking the day I left my job, and that was the honest truth. What I've learned in all the years since is that the goal isn't to get to a place where you're not scared anymore. That place doesn't exist. The goal is to get to a place where your desire to truly live is just a little bit bigger than your fear. That's the whole game. It's not about finding a perfect risk-free plan. It's about looking at the one guaranteed, certain risk. The risk of wasting the good years you have left in a place that's making you sick and deciding that the unknown is a better bet. The fear doesn't entirely go away, but it gets quieter. It stops being the loudest voice in the room. And one day, you realize you haven't heard from it in a while. And that, right there, is freedom. And if you're listening to this right now, maybe on your commute, maybe on your lunch break, and you feel that familiar knot in your stomach, I want you to know that I see you. I know that feeling. It's the feeling of being trapped between a life that's wearing you down and a future that feels terrifyingly uncertain. People will tell you to be grateful you have a job. They'll tell you to be responsible, but they won't talk about the cost. The quiet desperation of a Sunday night. The feeling that your own life is something that's happening without you, somewhere off in the distance. I'm just one person, talking from my own experience. But I'm telling you that feeling isn't a life sentence. It's a warning sign. It's your own heart telling you that you were made for more than just surviving. You were made for quiet mornings and home-cooked meals and the simple feeling of the sun on your face. You are not being unreasonable for wanting your own life back. We've built a small community here of people who believe that. People who are tired of the noise and the hurry and are trying to find their way back to something real. And a lot of them find their way to the comments section. They share their own stories, their own fears, and their own small victories. If you feel up to it, I'd encourage you to do the same. You never know who's out there, feeling alone, who needs to read your words to feel a little bit braver today. It helps more than you know. Your story matters. I appreciate you spending this time with me. I'm Ron, and I'll see you on the next one. You take care now.